I can still remember the smell of that vanilla cake Marla baked that morning. She never cooked, not even for holidays. But on my 18th birthday, she did. I should have known then that something was wrong. They waited until late afternoon. I was still in my pajamas when Jack called me into the living room. He didn't meet my eyes. Marla was hunched forward, hands folded, staring at her lap. Her mouth was drawn tight. Something was coming. I could feel it. "Sit down," Jack said. His tone had that same coldness he used back when I spilled juice on the carpet as a kid. I sat, confused but quiet. I'd learned early on that showing emotion only made things worse. Then they dropped the truth. "You were adopted," Marla said flatly. "No emotion, no tears, just a statement." "You were 2 when we took you in," Jack added. "Your birth mother couldn't take care of you. We did what we could." I sat there frozen. "We think it's time," Marla continued, "for you to find your own path. You're old enough now." Jack reached beneath the couch and dragged out a small duffel bag across the carpet. "There's some cash inside and a few clothes," he said. "We've arranged a room for you at a hostel. You'll stay there until you find work." They were kicking me out on my birthday. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just stood up slowly and nodded. "Thanks," I said with a polite smile. They didn't notice how tightly I gripped the bag. They didn't see the flicker in my eyes, because what they didn't know, what they couldn't know, was that I had already discovered the truth. 3 weeks earlier, I'd stumbled across a letter. It was buried at the bottom of a hallway drawer, hidden behind old tax forms. An envelope addressed to someone named Dr. Celia Morgan. Inside, there was a birth certificate, with my name and hers, listed as the mother. No father. I had searched her name online, even combed through old newspapers at the local library. What I uncovered had shaken me so deeply, I hadn't told a soul. My birth mother hadn't been negligent. She hadn't abandoned me. She had been silenced. And now, as I walked out of the house I'd lived in my entire life, I didn't feel shame. I felt ready. Because I wasn't just leaving, I had a plan. The hostel smelled like disinfectant and forgotten dreams. The kind of place people landed when every door had closed on them. That first night, I curled up with my back against the wall, clutching the bag like it held anything worth stealing. In truth, it only had 2 changes of clothes, a few crumpled bills, and that envelope. The envelope was everything. At sunrise, I slipped out into the cold, crisp morning and walked for nearly an hour to the public library, the only place that felt remotely safe. It was quiet there. Familiar. I sat down at the microfilm machine and loaded the reel I'd hidden in my locker the week before. And I read the same yellowed article again and again, as if the ending might somehow change. Local psychiatrist Dr. Celia Morgan institutionalized after speaking out. A photo beside the headline showed a young woman with striking eyes and tired elegance being led away in cuffs. Her face didn't show fear, only defiance. The article claimed she had accused a doctor, Dr. Victor Ransom, of abuse and unauthorized experiments on women at a now-closed clinic. He denied it all, of course. And 1 month later, she was declared unstable and committed to Stonehaven Institute for observation. No charges, no follow-up. Just silence. Until recently, when I saw Dr. Ransom's name again, this time as the head of the Ransom Wellness Foundation. Jack had donated to it often. I remembered seeing the name on letters in his study. It wasn't random anymore. I printed the article and tucked it back into the envelope. The librarian glanced at me, maybe because my hands were shaking. Back at the hostel, I opened my notebook and started writing, everything I'd pieced together. Dr. Morgan was a licensed psychiatrist. She'd been committed after exposing a powerful man. She gave birth to me while inside, and somehow I ended up with a couple who had direct ties to him. That wasn't fate. That was a cover-up. That night, I didn't sleep. The shadows above my bed felt like they were watching. My thoughts wouldn't stop spinning. Did Celia Morgan know I was out here? Was she even alive? I had to find her, speak to her. But first, I had to locate Stonehaven, if it even still existed. The next morning, I started calling public records offices, mental health departments, anyone who might know where patients were moved after Stonehaven shut down. Most had never even heard of it, except one woman, an older clerk with a warm but hesitant voice. She said she'd check and call me back. 2 hours later, she did. "There's a long-term facility about 3 hours north," she said quietly, "in a town called Willow Run. Some of the old Stonehaven patients were moved there in the late 90s. No public records, but I believe some are still alive." She didn't explain how she knew. I didn't ask. I just wrote the name down. Cedar Hill Center for Behavioral Recovery. I had a direction now. No money, no car, no clue what I'd find. But I knew one thing. I wasn't stopping. The clerk's voice lingered in my mind. Some of them are still there. Moved quietly in the late 90s. No public list. I didn't ask how she knew. I just wrote the name down. Cedar Hill Center for Behavioral Recovery. I had a destination now, but no money, no transportation, and no idea what I'd find once I got there. I hadn't eaten in almost a day, not out of choice, but because I couldn't afford to. The few wrinkled bills Marla and Jack gave me were nearly gone, spent on hostel fees and printing those archived records. At this point, even the coins stuck inside vending machines seemed like gold. I sat on the curb outside the library, notebook in hand, trying to calculate how far hope could stretch. The bus fare to Willow Run wasn't outrageous, but with what I had, it may as well have been a flight across the ocean. I didn't want to steal. I didn't want to beg. But I did want the truth. Across the street, a small diner had a faded help wanted sign taped to the window. I stared at it for a long time. Then, with hesitation thick in my throat, I crossed the street. Inside, I asked for the manager. Told him I'd scrub pans, mop floors, whatever he needed. He looked me up and down, noticed the bags under my eyes. "You start tomorrow." 6 a.m., he said. I worked 5 days straight, silently, steadily. My back throbbed. My fingers cracked from bleach and hot water. I didn't complain. On the 6th morning, I pocketed $117 in pay and tips. It was enough. The bus to Willow Run departed at 10:40 a.m. I didn't say goodbye. I just walked to the terminal with the envelope tucked inside my coat, Dr. Morgan's article printed and folded neatly within, and boarded. The ride was eerily quiet. The bus passed through empty towns frozen in time, their streets still frosted despite it being April. When we finally arrived, Cedar Hill Center emerged atop a hill, mostly hidden by overgrown trees. The sign was cracked, the paint flaking. It looked more like a forgotten mansion than a care facility. Inside, a tired woman sat at the front desk. Her glasses slipped low on her nose, and she barely looked up when I approached. "I'm here to visit a patient," I said, steadying my voice. She raised a brow. "Name?" "Celia Morgan." She blinked. "Relation?" I hesitated, then replied, "I'm her daughter." Her eyes studied me for a beat. "She doesn't get visitors." "I know," I said quietly. "That's why I'm here." She made a brief call, murmuring into the receiver, then pointed down the hall. "Second door on the left. Keep it short." The hallway smelled of bleach and silence. I pushed the door open slowly. And there she was, thin, still, hair streaked with gray, hands folded neatly in her lap, facing the window. She didn't turn when I stepped in. "Dr. Morgan," I said softly. My voice cracked. She looked up slowly, and for just a moment, just a flicker, our eyes locked. I saw something in them. Recognition. Maybe sorrow. Maybe both. She didn't speak, but she didn't look away either. I stepped closer, my heart pounding. "My name is Mira. You had a daughter 18 years ago. They said you were unfit, dangerous. But I read what happened. I know what you tried to expose. I know what they did to you." She exhaled, a slow, almost fragile breath. Her posture shifted, her hands clenched. "They still watch me," she whispered. Her voice was thin, more breath than sound. "They think I've forgotten, but I haven't." I froze. She remembered, but who was they? Her gaze darted to the corners of the ceiling, then to the door, like she knew exactly where the cameras had once been, even if they weren't there now. "They said it was research," she continued, barely audible. But it wasn't. They recorded every session, every breakdown. They weren't healing us. They were profiling us, controlling us. She gripped her wrist as though steadying herself against what came next. "Dr. Morgan." I stepped closer. Who is they? Was it the Ransom Foundation? Her eyes widened briefly, just a flash, and she blinked rapidly. "My father?" The name seemed to strike her like a wave. She shook her head, not as a no, but in fear, in disbelief. "Your father?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "He wasn't meant to adopt you. He wasn't even cleared. But he made the files disappear, sealed your record. I tried to stop it, but by then, they'd already decided I was too dangerous, too loud." My knees wobbled. I sat beside her, trying not to let my voice break. "What were they doing to those women?" I asked. She bit her lip, drawing blood. Experiments, isolation therapy, drug trials, memory suppression. It started as PTSD research, but it changed. They tested methods, compliance tactics on women no one would miss. Addicts, abused wives, or just inconvenient women. "And you?" I asked. "I documented everything," she whispered. "I believed the truth would matter. I filed a report with the board. A week later, I was suspended, then arrested, then locked in here." Her voice cracked. Her eyes welled up, but she didn't let a single tear fall. She had trained herself too well. I wanted to reach out and tell her she didn't have to fight alone anymore, but I knew this was only the beginning. "I begged them to let me see you," Dr. Morgan whispered, her voice barely holding together. "When they said you'd been placed, I didn't know where, or with whom. Then they moved me here, said I was a risk, a danger to myself." She paused. Her eyes didn't blink. "I never stopped wondering about you." I reached into my bag, pulled out the envelope, and gently placed it in her hands. "You don't have to wonder anymore." She touched the folded pages like they were fragile glass, her fingers trembling. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then finally, "You shouldn't have come. If they know you found me—" "I don't care," I cut in, my voice firm now. "You're not insane. You never were. And I'm going to prove it." Her hand darted out and gripped mine with a startling strength. Her eyes locked onto mine, intense and haunted. "Don't trust anyone in a badge or a lab coat. Not in this world." Suddenly, footsteps echoed down the hallway outside. Her body tensed. A shadow passed the doorway. She sat up straighter. Her face went blank. Her posture perfect, practiced. The door creaked open. A nurse stepped inside, smiling thinly. "I'm sorry. Visiting hours are over." Dr. Morgan didn't look at me again. She just turned toward the window, hands folded back into her lap like before. As I passed the nurse in the doorway, my heart pounding, she leaned in slightly and murmured under her breath, "You're not the first to come asking about her, but the last girl never came back." She closed the door before I could respond. The cold outside slapped me the moment I stepped out of Cedar Hill. My breath fogged in the air. My fingertips trembled, not just from the wind, but from the weight of everything I'd just heard. She wasn't a patient. She was a prisoner. I didn't go straight to the bus stop. Instead, I found an old bench beneath a dying oak tree and stared at the peeling sign on the hill. Another girl had come before me. Someone else had tried to uncover the truth. And now, she was gone. That nurse hadn't warned me out of kindness. It was a threat, wrapped in quiet words. Back in Willow Run, I checked into a crumbling motel. The wallpaper was peeling. The key barely turned. I didn't sleep. Instead, I spent the night in a tangle of online forums, public records archives, even deep Reddit threads. I searched everything: Cedar Hill, Stonehaven, missing patients. There was nothing. Like their entire history had been scrubbed clean. Then I turned to the one name I couldn't shake, the Ransom Foundation. The same foundation I'd seen on the envelopes in Jack's office. Their website looked pristine. Glossy stock photos of wellness retreats, smiling women, hopeful slogans. A lie. A cover. I dug deeper. Nonprofit filings, IRS documents, archived web pages. And then I saw it. Buried in the foundation's administrative reports. A signature. Jack Collins. The year Stonehaven Institute was shut down, he had personally signed off on an acquisition of research materials and patient care data. I couldn't breathe. Jack hadn't just been a donor. He was in it. A board member, a trusted insider. He helped Dr. Ransom bury the truth. Maybe he even helped have Dr. Morgan committed. And then he took me. I wasn't some charity case. I was a souvenir, a symbol that their system worked, that they could destroy someone's life and raise her child like nothing ever happened. I wanted to scream, but beneath the rage, a sharper fear crept in. They had power. They had reach. They had erased people before. That nurse at Cedar Hill hadn't been warning me. She was telling me to run, but I wasn't running. I needed proof. I searched the employee records for Cedar Hill and found a name. Karen Holt, the nurse I'd just seen. Her profile was nearly empty. No posts, just a few photos of a cat. But one comment under an old photo at a nursing conference caught my eye. "Still working nights at Cedar Hill? Poor thing. That place is haunted." That was my thread. I sent her a message. I didn't expect a reply, but I wrote anyway. "My name is Mira. I spoke with Celia Morgan. I know what happened. I need your help. We have to expose them." An hour passed, then 2. But at 2:14 a.m., a reply came in. "Meet me. Back entrance. Tomorrow night. Midnight. If anyone sees you, say you're lost." That night, the wind sliced through my coat like it wasn't there. Midnight at Cedar Hill felt surreal, not abandoned, not asleep. Hiding. I crept along a gravel path behind the facility, shadows stretching under the moonlight. My boots crunched frost-covered stone. The maintenance door loomed ahead, rusted, crooked. Before I could knock, it creaked open. Nurse Karen Holt stood there, still in scrubs, her face drawn and pale. "You came," she said. I nodded. I had to. "Keep your voice low," she warned. "Some of the cameras are broken. but not all. She led me down a narrow hallway, the walls flickering with weak light. We passed old pipes, closed doors, and the smell of mildew. My heart pounded. This was the moment everything could change. The hallway led to a small, forgotten break room, and beyond that, an old records office thick with dust and silence. Filing cabinets lined the walls like sentries. "I shouldn't be doing this," Nurse Holt whispered, unlocking the third drawer down with a tiny brass key. "But I saw what they did. To your mother, to the others. And when the last girl showed up, I thought, maybe someone would finally listen." I froze. The last girl? She pulled out a worn manila folder and placed it gently into my hands. Her name was Sophie Caldwell. Journalism student, sharp, persistent. She asked questions about Dr. Morgan, about other women who'd vanished from Stonehaven. She showed me court filings, medical records she'd dug up. She was so close. "What happened to her?" I asked. "She came back for a second visit," Holt said quietly. "That same night, her dorm room was broken into. Laptop gone. Her backup drives wiped. She told her roommate she thought someone was following her. 2 days later, she disappeared. Police? They called it voluntary. No signs of foul play. But I don't believe that. Why not? Sophie wasn't the running kind." I opened Dr. Morgan's file. Pages and pages. All stamped in red. Unfit, delusional, paranoid. But the tone was cold, too polished, too convenient. "She wasn't delusional," Holt said. "She was sane. She filed an official complaint the day before she was committed. The next day, she's labeled a threat." I turned to a photocopied report, scrawled in handwriting I instantly recognized. C. Morgan. She documented unauthorized drug trials on unwilling patients, all under the direction of Dr. Ransom. "Why hasn't this ever come out?" I asked. Karen Holt sighed. "The Foundation's reach is everywhere. Hospitals, research labs, even political donors. You try to go through official channels, and you disappear too." "I'm not going through the system," I said, folding the report into my coat. "I'm going to burn their house down from the outside." She stared at me for a moment, then reached into her own bag and handed over a small black flash drive. "These are internal memos, scans of patient logs, reports your mother filed. If you're serious, take this, but don't come back here." I slipped it into my pocket. Something inside me shifted as I left through the maintenance door. I wasn't just a girl looking for the truth anymore. I was a threat. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid. I didn't go back to the motel. Instead, I spent the night in a diner 2 towns over, huddled in a corner booth, nursing a cup of bitter coffee I couldn't afford. My fingers played with the flash drive like it was radioactive. I had no laptop, just a cheap prepaid phone. I couldn't risk plugging the drive into anything traceable. By noon, I found a second-hand electronics shop and bought a beat-up Chromebook with cash. I took it to the public library, hid in the back behind shelves of forgotten biographies, and plugged it in. 3 minutes later, the folders loaded. Patient logs, experimental treatments, foundation memos, DRVR, private videos, Celia Morgan transfers. My throat tightened. I opened patient logs first. Cold clinical descriptions, sedation trials, regression therapy, compliance sessions. Each entry ended with lines like, "Subject transferred to long-term containment." No names, just numbers. Then came the memos. Dozens were signed, digitally, by Jack Collins. Patient CM remains a reputational threat. Recommend continued containment and suppression. Potential breach via S. Caldwell. Flagged and handled. They knew Sophie had been investigating. They watched her. Let her get close. Then erased her. My hands trembled as I opened the folder marked Dr. VR Private Videos. Dozens of clips. No titles, just dates. I clicked on one. 2005. A dim room. A woman strapped to a chair, her voice slurred, her hands shaking. A man spoke from off-screen, smooth and measured. "Do you believe we're here to harm you, Celia?" Her reply was barely audible. "No, you're helping me forget." I slammed the lid shut. It wasn't therapy. It was programming. I had to move. Fast. I uploaded copies of everything to a secure drive and then sent them out to every independent journalist I could find. I used burner emails, whisper forums, even that whistleblower podcast I'd heard once during a long bus ride. Most never responded, except one, Rachel Monroe. Once a respected investigative reporter, fired after pushing a story about abuse in state psychiatric facilities. Rumor was she never stopped digging. I wrote, "I have proof of state-sanctioned experiments on women. I have names. I have video. And I think Sophie Caldwell tried to contact you before she disappeared. Please help me." I expected silence, but less than an hour later, she responded, "Where are you? I've been waiting for this for 15 years. Rachel Monroe's cabin sat hidden beneath towering pine trees, miles from anything familiar. No signs, no sounds, but the wind threading through branches. Her voice on the phone had been clear, no nonsense. No names, no license plates. "Leave your phone in the glove box. I'll meet you outside." When I arrived, she was already standing on the porch. Early 50s, sharp eyes, skin wind-burnt and tired. She didn't smile, just gave a single nod and turned toward the door. Inside, there was no tea, no welcome, just action. She locked the door, pulled out an old battered laptop and said, "Show me." I handed over the flash drive. She plugged it in without hesitation. No shock, no gasps, only a slow, deliberate breath when she saw Sophie Caldwell's name in the folders. "She called me once," Rachel murmured. "Told me she was scared, thought she was being followed. I told her to meet me. She vanished before we could." She looked up, locking eyes with me. "You're not just poking around, Mira. You've stepped into a war. These people, Collins, Ransom, they think they already won." "I know," I said quietly, "but I'm not backing down." She opened one of the memos and nodded, scanning the Foundation's official headers, the bureaucratic jargon, the digital signatures. "These are real," she said. "This is how they write. No way you faked this." She opened a video file. Silence filled the room as the footage played. Dr. Morgan strapped to a chair, her voice slurred, her eyes empty. The man off screen, calm and coaxing. Rachel's jaw clenched. "If this goes public," she said, "someone's going to burn." Then softer. "But we can't go off half-cocked. One wrong move, and you disappear. Just like Sophie. Or worse, like Celia. Alive, but buried." She leaned in, her voice a whisper. "We have to make this too big for them to bury. We go wide. Former prosecutors, whistleblower networks, independent press. And when we drop it everywhere, all at once." I nodded. But deep inside, I knew we weren't just fighting for justice. We were fighting for Celia, for Sophie, and for the piece of me that had been stolen long ago. Rachel didn't waste time. Within 24 hours, she had duplicated the drive 6 times and shipped copies across the country. Each envelope went to a different person, 2 human rights lawyers, a former state prosecutor, an underground journalist, and 2 podcasters known for exposing government corruption. Every flash drive had a unique password. Each was delivered through encrypted phone calls. "This is how you kill a monster," Rachel said. starve it of secrecy, while she worked through the night drafting a full report, names, dates, video transcripts. I sat by the window, unable to sleep. The stars overhead felt distant, like memories you can't quite reach. By morning, I had a voicemail. The voice I'd grown up with, calm and composed, Jack Collins. "Mira, I know what you've been doing. I want to talk. You owe me that." I stared at the phone, every nerve in my body screaming. "I don't owe him anything," I said aloud. Rachel looked up from her laptop. "Don't go." But I had to. I had to look him in the eye. One last time. We met at an old train station, half empty, half abandoned. Security cameras, people around. No risk of disappearing without a trace. He wore that same beige coat, that same practiced smile, as if nothing had changed. "You've grown into a clever young woman," he said. "Don't!" I snapped. "Don't pretend you raised me out of love." His expression flickered. For a moment, something real passed behind his eyes. "You think this was simple?" he asked. "You think I wanted it this way?" "No," I said. "I think you wanted control?" He paused, then gave a slight nod as if admitting something unspoken. "Everything you've uncovered. It's dangerous. Not just for me. For you. For Celia. If this goes public, people will get hurt." "I know," I said, voice firm. "They already have." He stepped closer. "It doesn't have to end like this. You still have time to stop it." I looked him straight in the eyes. "It's already out." He froze. His face changed. Calm peeled away. What remained was something colder, more dangerous. "This will destroy you too," he said. "No," I whispered. "It frees me." I turned and walked away, and I didn't look back. The news broke 2 days later. It started as a podcast episode. Raw audio clips, the videos of Dr. Morgan, the memos, the internal documents, a story unfolding online about a wellness foundation that destroyed women in the name of healing. Then came the articles, the think pieces, the exposed falsified patient files, anonymous whistleblower statements. Sophie Caldwell's name reappeared, a full expose, naming names, and finally, the video. Dr. Morgan, drugged, repeating what they'd conditioned her to say. People watched. People listened. Within a week, Stonehaven Institute was trending. Within 10 days, the state attorney general launched a formal investigation. Subpoenas were issued. Jack Collins, Dr. Ransom, 3 others. Their names on a class action lawsuit filed by the families of disappeared women. I never expected the world to care, but it did. Rachel kept me safe, hidden, protected. But my mind never left Cedar Hill. "I have to get her out," I told Rachel one morning, "before they decide she's too dangerous to keep alive." Rachel made a call. By dusk, we were already on the road. Cedar Hill didn't resist. After the leak, half the staff had quit. The rest were scared. Nurse Holt met us at the door. "She's been sedated," she whispered, handing me a clipboard. "But she's still lucid. You need to move fast." I found Dr. Morgan in the same chair by the window. Her eyes were dull. But when she saw me, something changed. "Mom," I whispered, kneeling beside her. "We're leaving." Her lips parted. Her hand trembled as she reached up and touched my cheek. "You found me," she said, voice cracking. "I always would," I replied. No alarms sounded. No men in white coats came, just dusk light, wind, and silence. We walked out, together. The following weeks were a blur. Legal protection, medical care, trauma therapy, teaching Celia how to live in a world that had forgotten her. The trial was delayed, postponed, but not dismissed. Jack Collins never called again. 3 months later, he was indicted, and Rachel Monroe kept digging. 6 months after the leak, a woman was found living under a false name in a quiet Oregon town. She was nervous, guarded, but she was alive. Sophie Caldwell. I flew out to meet her. We talked for hours, not about what had been lost, but about what we were going to build together.